is that?
That's impossible. Look at the scale of it.
What is that thing?
It's not an iceberg. Get back.
It's too big. Turn around, quickly.
Are you seeing this, Captain? That's not a mountain.
It's moving. Get us out of here. We need to ascend now.
Captain, the signal is growing. It's impossible.
How large is it, Doctor?
It's bigger than the ship. It's bigger than anything on record.
What if the most terrifying creatures in the ocean were never supposed to be discovered? Imagine you're out at sea in the middle of the night. There's nothing around you but darkness. Then your sonar picks up something beneath the ship. At first, you assume it's a whale. But the signal is far too large. Then you think it might be a submarine. But it's moving way too fast. And suddenly, the signal disappears. You slowly walk toward the edge of the ship and look into the water. For a moment, you see nothing. Then something enormous moves beneath the surface. You can't see its body. You can't tell how deep it is. You only know one thing. Something is down there. And that's where tonight's journey begins. We're going from the freezing waters of Antarctica to creatures inspired by ancient legends, terrifying predators that once ruled the oceans, and enormous monsters that could make even the largest ships look tiny. Some of these creatures come from old myths. Others were born from modern internet legends. And some were created entirely from imagination. But they all share one terrifying idea. What if something like this really was hiding in the places humans almost never explore, ***. Because the deeper we go, the stranger the creatures become. And just when you think we've reached the limit of what could possibly exist, we're leaving the ocean behind. Because the final creature isn't hiding beneath the waves. Part 1, The White Figure Beneath Antarctica. The Antarctic Ocean is one of the most brutal places on Earth. The water is freezing. The storms can become violent without warning. And once night falls, the darkness seems almost endless. But beneath that frozen surface is a world we still know surprisingly little about. One night, a research vessel was slowly making its way through Antarctic waters when a crew member noticed something unusual floating beside the ship. At first, it looked like a small iceberg. Just another pale shape drifting through the darkness. Nobody paid much attention. Until it moved. And it wasn't moving with the waves. It was moving against them. The crew immediately gathered along the side of the vessel, trying to figure out what they were looking at. Then the shape began rising from beneath the surface. For a few seconds, everyone just stood there. Something enormous was emerging from the black water. It looked almost human. But it was far too large to be human. A pale body slowly appeared beneath the surface, followed by long arms stretching through the freezing water. Its skin looked smooth and strangely featureless. Then they saw the face. There was almost nothing there. Except two dark eyes staring back at the ship. Nobody knew what they were looking at. Nobody knew how long it had been following them. One crew member quickly grabbed a camera and tried to capture the creature. But the moment the camera was raised, it vanished. The water became completely still. The crew waited. Nothing came back to the surface. Then suddenly, boom! Something slammed into the underside of the vessel. The entire ship shook. Equipment crashed across the deck as the crew struggled to keep their balance. They rushed back to the railing. But the white figure was gone. No body. No trail. No explanation. Just endless black water stretching into the Antarctic night. The creature in this story is known as the Ningen. It is a modern internet cryptid that is often described as a gigantic, pale humanoid creature supposedly seen in the waters around Antarctica. Descriptions vary, but the creature is usually portrayed with a smooth white body, long limbs, and an almost featureless face. Some versions of the legend claim it could grow somewhere between 20 and 30 meters long. That's roughly the height of a 7 or 8-story building. But there's one important detail. There is no scientific evidence confirming that the Ningen actually exists. No verified specimen. No confirmed body. No reliable scientific documentation. The Ningen belongs to the world of modern folklore and internet mysteries. And that makes the story even more interesting. Because Antarctica is already one of the strangest environments on Earth. Huge areas are difficult to explore. Visibility beneath the surface can be terrible. And in freezing, dark water, something ordinary can suddenly look completely impossible. A whale seen from the wrong angle. A massive piece of ice drifting beneath the surface. A distant submarine. Or simply something the human eye can't identify in the darkness. But imagine you're standing on the deck of that research vessel. It's the middle of the night. The ocean around you is almost completely black. Then you notice a pale shape floating beside the ship. You assume it's ice. You look away. Then you look back. And the shape is closer. It turns toward you. And starts moving. At that moment, the most frightening thing wouldn't be knowing that a monster was coming. It would be realizing that you have absolutely no idea what is underneath you. And that's what makes the Ningen so unsettling. Not because we know it exists. But because we don't know what someone might actually see when they look into the darkness. And if the Ningen represents the terrifying mystery of the deep, the next creature represents something far more direct. It doesn't quietly disappear beneath the water. It doesn't watch from a distance. It waits beside towering cliffs. With multiple heads ready to strike. And when the first head appears, you may already be surrounded. Part 2, The Creature with Too Many Heads. The ocean can be terrifying when you can't see what's beneath you. But sometimes, the danger isn't beneath the water at all. Sometimes, it's waiting above you. Imagine you're sailing through a narrow passage surrounded by enormous cliffs. The water is strangely calm. No strong wind. No massive waves. Just the sound of your ship moving through the darkness. The crew begins to relax. Then someone notices something strange. The waves near the cliffs are moving. But the water around the ship is completely still. The captain looks toward the rocks. Nothing. Then comes a sound. A deep, powerful roar echoes through the passage. The entire crew freezes. Another roar follows. This time, it's closer. Something moves between the cliffs. At first, the sailors think they're seeing several enormous serpents rising from the water. Then another head appears. And another. And suddenly they realize. They aren't looking at several creatures. They're looking at one. A gigantic monster with multiple long necks twisting above the waves. Each neck ends in a massive head. And every head is staring directly at the ship. The crew tries to turn the vessel around. But the passage is too narrow. There isn't enough room. One of the creature's heads suddenly lunges forward. Its jaws snap around the ship's mast. With one violent movement, the mast disappears into the darkness. Panic spreads across the deck. The sailors try to escape toward the opposite side. But another head is already waiting there. The creature strikes again. Its enormous body moves between the rocks, blocking the only route out. Then something even worse happens. A huge claw rises from the water. The sailors finally understand that this isn't just some giant serpent. It's a monster built for ambush. Multiple heads. Massive limbs. And a body powerful enough to trap anything caught inside its territory. The ship has nowhere to go. Within moments, the vessel disappears beneath the waves. When the water finally becomes calm again, there's almost nothing left behind. Only broken pieces of wood drifting between the cliffs. This legendary creature is known as Scylla. In ancient Greek mythology, Scylla was a terrifying sea monster that lived near a dangerous passage of water. Ancient stories describe her as a creature with multiple heads and a monstrous body, waiting for ships to pass too close. She wasn't simply dangerous because of her size. Her real advantage was her position. She lived near a narrow passage where ships had very few options. Sail too close to the rocks, and you could become her next victim. Sail too far in the opposite direction, and you could face another legendary danger. That's what made the story of Scylla so terrifying. There was no perfect escape. And that idea still works today. Because imagine being trapped on a ship in a narrow channel. You hear something moving in the darkness. You turn toward the cliffs. One head rises from the water. Then another. Then another. You start backing away. But suddenly you realize something terrifying. The creature isn't attacking from one direction. It's surrounding you. Of course, Scylla is a creature of mythology. There is no scientific evidence that a giant multi-headed sea monster ever hunted ships from the cliffs. But ancient sailors didn't have satellites, sonar, underwater cameras, or modern maps. The ocean was still largely unknown. A strange animal seen through darkness could become something much larger in the telling. And over generations, those stories became legends. But what if the creature you're dealing with isn't hiding beside a cliff? What if it's hiding thousands of meters beneath your ship? Far below the sunlight. Past the reach of ordinary divers. Where the pressure could crush a human body in seconds. That's where the next monster waits. And when a submarine's sonar mistakes it for an underwater mountain. The crew is about to discover that the mountain is moving. Part 3, The Mountain That Moved. Thousands of meters below the surface, sunlight disappears completely. There is only darkness. And at these depths, even a submarine can feel tiny. One research submarine was exploring a deep underwater trench when its sonar detected something enormous on the seabed. The crew assumed it was a mountain. It was massive. It barely moved. Then the sonar reading changed. The mountain moved. Slowly at first. Then it began rising from the darkness. The crew watched in disbelief as the enormous shape revealed several faint glowing eyes. Then they saw the mouth. It was enormous. Rows of sharp teeth disappeared into the darkness inside it. Before the crew could react, the creature suddenly surged forward. The submarine had nowhere to go. The monster opened its jaws and swallowed the front section in a single attack. The remaining crew tried to escape, but something massive wrapped around the damaged submarine. Then it began pulling them downward. Deeper. And deeper. Until the lights of the submarine disappeared completely. This creature is known as El Gran Maya, a fictional deep-sea monster often imagined as an enormous whale-like creature hundreds of meters long. Its size is what makes the legend terrifying. At extreme depths, humans already struggle to explore. Now imagine something enormous living down there. Something big enough to make a submarine look like a toy. But there's an even more frightening thought. What if the thing detected by sonar isn't sitting on the ocean floor? What if it's moving toward you? Because the next creature doesn't need hundreds of meters of size to be terrifying. It only needs one thing. Teeth. Hashtag Part 4, The Predator That Ruled the Ocean. Nearly 200 meters beneath the surface, 5 divers were exploring an old shipwreck. The wreck was silent. Dark. Almost completely still. Then one diver looked upward. A gigantic shadow passed over them. At first, they thought it was a whale. Then the shadow turned. The divers suddenly realized they were looking at something much worse. A massive shark was moving directly toward the wreck. And it was far larger than any shark alive today. The creature slammed into the shipwreck. Metal twisted under the impact. The divers were thrown into the darkness as the enormous predator circled back for another attack. This wasn't a monster from a legend. This was Megalodon. A real prehistoric shark that lived millions of years ago. Scientists estimate that Megalodon could have reached roughly 15 to 20 meters in length, making it one of the largest predatory sharks ever known. Its enormous jaws were filled with powerful teeth designed for tearing into large prey, including whales. Imagine seeing that silhouette beneath you. You wouldn't hear it coming. You might not even see its body. You would simply notice the sunlight disappearing above you. Then the water would go dark. And something enormous would be moving toward you. The good news? Megalodon is extinct. There is no confirmed evidence that it survives in today's oceans. But that doesn't make the idea any less terrifying. Because the ocean has produced predators of incredible size before. And if nature created Megalodon once, it raises a disturbing question. What else could the deep ocean have produced? Now forget sharks. Forget submarines. Forget anything that could realistically exist. Because the next creature doesn't just attack ships. It towers over them. And when it rises from the ocean, the ships below look almost microscopic. #### Part 5, The Monster That Walks Out of the Ocean. It's late at night in the Pacific. A naval convoy is moving through dark waters when something strange happens. Every radar screen suddenly goes blank. The crew checks the equipment. Nothing. Then someone sees movement ahead. A massive dorsal shape cuts through the ocean. At first, they think it's a submarine. Then the water begins to rise. Something enormous emerges from the sea. A colossal reptilian creature towers over the ships. The crew opens fire. Explosions erupt across the water. But the creature keeps moving. It reaches the first warship and swings its enormous tail. The impact sends the vessel crashing sideways. Another ship tries to escape. But the creature turns. It opens its mouth. And a brilliant blast of energy tears across the darkness. The convoy disappears behind fire and smoke. This is Godzilla, one of the most famous giant monsters ever created. Unlike the Ningen or Megalodon, Godzilla isn't an unknown animal waiting to be discovered. He's a fictional monster from Japanese popular culture, portrayed in different versions with different origins and abilities. But one thing almost never changes. His size. His strength. And his ability to turn the ocean into a battlefield. Now imagine standing on the deck of a ship when the water around you suddenly begins rising. Not because of a storm. Not because of a wave. But because something enormous is standing beneath the surface. You look up. And realize the creature is taller than your ship. That's when you understand. You aren't hunting the monster. You're already inside its territory. But if you think a creature this large is impossible to imagine, wait until you see what comes next. Because the next monster isn't measured in meters. It's measured on a scale so enormous that even the horizon may not be enough to show you where its body ends. Final chapter, when the ocean isn't big enough. The ocean is enormous. But imagine discovering something so large that the ocean itself suddenly feels small. A research vessel is traveling across the open Pacific when the sonar begins behaving strangely. A massive object appears beneath them. The crew checks the equipment. The reading makes no sense. They scan again. The object is still there. And then it moves. Slowly. The crew watches the sonar screen as the shape begins rising from the darkness. At first, they think it's a whale. But the longer they watch, the worse the numbers become. The creature is impossibly large. Its body stretches far beyond anything they've ever recorded. A gigantic whale-like shape finally rises close enough to disturb the surface. The waves begin building around the vessel. The ship rises and falls violently. Then the creature disappears. The sonar goes completely silent. For several seconds, nobody speaks. Then one crew member looks toward the horizon. Something enormous is moving beneath it. This fictional creature is often imagined as a colossal whale, a sea giant so massive that ordinary measurements almost stop making sense. It isn't a scientifically discovered animal. It's a creature of imagination. But the idea is terrifying for one simple reason. The ocean already contains animals that are enormous. Blue whales can reach extraordinary lengths and are the largest animals known to have ever lived. So the idea of something even larger feels impossible. Until you remember how little of the deep ocean humans have actually explored. And just when you think we've reached the absolute limit, we leave Earth behind. Because the final creature doesn't live beneath the ocean. It doesn't live inside a trench. It doesn't hide beneath Antarctic ice. It comes from somewhere far darker. Space. Hashtag the final creature, space bloop. One night, astronomers detect something unusual moving through deep space. At first, they assume it's an asteroid. Then they consider a rogue planet. But the object isn't behaving like either one. It's changing direction. It's moving on its own. As telescopes track it, the object gets closer. And slowly, its shape begins to appear. It isn't a planet. It isn't an asteroid. It's something alive. A gigantic creature drifting silently through space. Its body resembles a colossal whale. Its enormous fins stretch through the darkness. And at the front of its body is a mouth so massive that an entire planet could disappear inside it. Scientists around the world watch in disbelief. Then the creature turns. And begins moving toward Earth. For the first time, humanity realizes that the object approaching the planet isn't going to collide with Earth. It's coming to feed. This fictional creature is known as Space Bloop, an imaginary cosmic monster designed to take the idea of a sea giant and make it unimaginably larger. Its size is beyond anything nature could realistically support. It isn't a real creature. But that's exactly what makes the idea so unsettling. Because we've spent this entire journey looking down into the unknown. The ocean. The trenches. The darkness. Places where humans still haven't seen everything. But perhaps the most frightening part isn't what might be hiding beneath the waves. It's what might exist beyond them. We know there are billions of galaxies. We know there are countless planets. We know life exists somewhere in the universe is still an unanswered question. So when you look into the night sky, you might be looking at nothing more than distant stars. Or maybe you're looking at a universe that contains things we haven't even imagined yet. And that's the real fear behind these creatures. The Ningen. Scylla. El Gran Maya. Megalodon. Godzilla. The world serpent. The colossal whale. And Space Bloop. Some are legends. Some were real animals that once existed. Some are fictional. But every one of them was born from the same human fear. The fear of the unknown. Because the ocean doesn't need monsters to be terrifying. The darkness is already enough. And somewhere beneath the waves, there are still places no human has ever seen. So the next time you're standing beside the ocean at night, look carefully at the water. Because you may see nothing. You may hear nothing. But beneath that perfectly calm surface, there is an entire world you cannot see. And perhaps that's the scariest thought of all. We haven't discovered everything that's down there yet. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, subscribe for more strange creatures, forgotten legends, and terrifying mysteries. And tell me in the comments, which creature would you never want to encounter in the real ocean? Because the next story might be even more terrifying.